Picture this. You're 21 years old, fresh out of university, and your parents expect you to get a respectable job, maybe settle down, start a family. Instead, you decide to walk to another continent. Not fly, not sail initially. Walk. And once you start walking, you just never really stop. For 30 years. This isn't the plot of some feel-good movie about finding yourself. This is the actual life of Abu Abdullah Muhammad Ibn Battuta, a young man from Tangier who, in 1325, set out on what should have been a routine pilgrimage to Mecca and accidentally became history's most obsessive traveler. While his European contemporaries were still arguing about whether the world was flat, Ibn Battuta was out there proving it was round by walking around most of it. Ibn Battuta's story begins in the narrow, winding streets of Tangier, where the Atlantic Ocean whispers to the Mediterranean Sea, and young men dream of places beyond the horizon. Born into a family of Islamic legal scholars in 1304, he was destined for a life of books, legal interpretations, and respectability. But destiny, as Ibn Battuta would learn, has a wicked sense of humor. At 21, he made the decision that would define his existence. He would perform the Hajj, the sacred pilgrimage to Mecca that every Muslim is called to make at least once in their lifetime. What should have been a journey of a few months stretched into 3 decades of wandering that would make Odysseus look like a homebody. His first challenge came almost immediately. The overland route through North Africa was treacherous, filled with Bedouin tribes who viewed lone travelers as walking ATMs. So Ibn Battuta did what any sensible person would do. He attached himself to a caravan and hoped for the best. This became his survival strategy. Charm his way into traveling groups, make himself useful, and always keep moving. The medieval world Ibn Battuta traversed was a tapestry of contrasts that would overwhelm modern sensibilities. In Cairo, he witnessed the remnants of Islamic splendor, where scholars debated philosophy in magnificent libraries while the Mamluk sultans played deadly games of politics. The city was a crossroads where African gold met Asian spices, where Christian pilgrims rubbed shoulders with Muslim merchants, and where the evening call to prayer echoed across the Nile like a lullaby for the ages. But it was in Mecca that Ibn Battuta experienced his first taste of the divine wanderlust that would consume his life. Completing the Hajj should have satisfied his religious obligations and sent him home to Morocco. Instead, standing in the shadow of the Kaaba, surrounded by pilgrims from every corner of the Islamic world, he felt the pull of the unknown like a physical force. Why return to the familiar when the world stretched endless and unexplored before him? His journey eastward reads like a fever dream of medieval adventure. In Damascus, he studied Islamic law while dodging the political chaos of Mamluk succession disputes. In Baghdad, he walked through streets where Harun al-Rashid once ruled, now shadows of their former glory under Mongol influence. Each city was a chapter in a book he was writing with his footsteps, a living chronicle of the Islamic world at its most expansive and complex. The Delhi Sultanate offered him perhaps his most surreal experience. Sultan Muhammad bin Tughlaq, a ruler whose combination of brilliance and madness would make modern dictators blush, appointed Ibn Battuta as a judge. For 6 years, our wandering scholar found himself dispensing justice in a court where paranoia was a survival skill and the Sultan's mood swings could determine whether you lived to see sunset. Ibn Battuta learned to navigate not just treacherous mountain passes, but the equally dangerous terrain of royal favor. His escape from Delhi, because that's what it was really, led him to the Maldive Islands, where he briefly served as chief judge and married into the local royal family. But even paradise couldn't contain his restless spirit. The call of the unknown was stronger than the comfort of tropical beaches and political security. China beckoned, and Ibn Battuta answered, becoming one of the few medieval travelers to reach the Middle Kingdom and return to tell the tale. In Chinese ports, he observed the maritime technology that would eventually reshape global trade, witnessing innovations that European explorers wouldn't encounter for another century. But perhaps the most remarkable aspect of Ibn Battuta's journey wasn't the distances he covered. Those 75,000 miles on foot, horseback, camel, and ship would be impressive in any era. It was his ability to adapt, to become a chameleon of cultures while never losing his essential identity. He spoke Arabic, Persian, and Turkish. He understood the delicate etiquette of royal courts and the rough camaraderie of merchant caravans. He could debate Islamic jurisprudence with scholars in Cordoba and navigate the complex social hierarchies of Indian sultanates. When he finally returned to Morocco in 1354, the world had changed, and so had he. The young legal scholar who had left Tangier was now a weathered traveler whose stories seemed too fantastic to believe. The Sultan of Morocco, recognizing the historical value of these tales, commissioned a scholar named Ibn Juzay to help Ibn Battuta compile his memoirs into what would become the Rihla, one of the greatest travel narratives ever written. Ibn Battuta died in 1368, probably in Morocco, though even his death location remains somewhat mysterious. Fitting for a man who made mystery his profession. His legacy isn't just the miles he covered or the cultures he documented, though both are extraordinary. It's the reminder that the world has always belonged to those brave enough to claim it, one footstep at a time. In our age of GPS and budget airlines, when crossing continents takes hours instead of years, Ibn Battuta's journey reminds us that the greatest adventures aren't about reaching destinations quickly. They're about allowing the journey to transform you completely. He proved that sometimes the best way to find yourself is to get thoroughly, wonderfully lost in the world. The next time you feel that familiar itch to see what lies beyond the horizon, remember the young man from Tangier who turned a pilgrimage into the adventure of several lifetimes. The world is still out there, waiting.